Praise the Lord, everybody. This video is for my class, and I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to be so diligent in your studies in regarding our Old Testament text. What I really want to cover is to remind you that on tomorrow, we're going to be covering Joshua, Judges, and Ruth. We're going to start with Joshua. We want to make sure that we cover such battles as Ai. And we want to talk about the sin of Achan. And we want to talk about the various things that impacted their abilities to win battles and their abilities to lose battles. And I want to talk about specifically the leaders and kings that Moses defeated, the leaders that Joshua defeated. And as we're talking about that, we're going to break it down where we're talking about possessing the promised land. And while we're covering possessing the promised land, we'll look at those lands that they possessed and those lands that were inheritance. And when we look at the inheritance, we'll see the great divide that took place, or the divide of Canaan. So as we're covering the divide of Canaan, we're going to talk about those by Lot, those by Caleb, those in Hebron. We're going to talk about Hebron and Derby. And we're going to talk about the different cities and all of the things. We're also going to talk about what took place concerning Ephraim and Manasseh and their inheritance and what they failed to do that impacted even future generations and impacts lives today. So we're going to look at all of the different things. We're going to talk about the cities of refuge. We're going to talk about the cities that belong to the Levites. We're going to cover various areas where we're going to talk about the altar by Jordan. I want you to be able to look at these things because as my students, I'm giving you kind of a heads up on what to be looking for as we're covering a brief overview and synopsis of what is going to take place on tomorrow. We're going to cover in our text Joshua's charge to the people. What exactly did Joshua charge to the people? How did the people respond? And what was Joshua's farewell address? Those are going to be some of the most interesting factors that we cover when we look at everything that's taking place. We're also going to cover death. Yes, death. We're going to cover the death of Moses. We're going to talk about Joseph's bones. And we're going to talk about how Joshua succeeds, but we're also going to talk about Eliezer. So we're going to cover the deaths of Moses and Eliezer, and we're going to cover, again, I repeat, whose bones? Joseph's bones. So as we look at these things, we're going to talk about all of that. Then we'll move into Judges, and in Judges, it's going to be so phenomenal because we'll get to see how the judges came about. We'll talk about Moab. We'll talk about Ehud. We'll talk about Philistia. We'll talk about Cana. We'll talk about Deborah and Barak. We'll talk about Jair. We'll actually talk about Ammon and Jephthah. We'll talk about the different various people that are in the book of Judges. We're also going to talk about Philistia and Samson. We're going to talk about Micah and his idolatry. We're going to actually talk about the Danite migration. So we'll talk about all of those things, and we'll talk about crime and civil war as it relates to the book of Judges. So this is going to be a very, very fascinating text to run through. Finally, we'll close out with the book of Ruth. And in Ruth, we'll break it down into the 5 different aspects of the story of Ruth. We'll talk about Ruth and Naomi, the relationship between a daughter and a mother-in-law, or a daughter and mother. Because even now in my family, we have no in-laws. Everybody's family. They're all my sisters, they're all my brothers, and they're my parents. They're my mother and father, not mother and father-in-law. They have the same level of respect as my own blood biological parents do. And so we're going to talk about those relationships. We're also going to talk about how Ruth gleans and the gleaning of the fields. We're going to talk about what took place on the threshing floor. And we're going to close out with Ruth marrying Boaz, but not only Ruth marrying Boaz, the relationship that brings the link of Christ. So we're going to close with the link of Christ in that topic. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that you are too. This is kind of a brief overview of what's going to be covered in the class. So be ready, and this is your teacher's way of giving you a heads up on what's going to be covered. Enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Have a blessed day.